Hi everyone, welcome back to Module 4 and now we are on activity number 3. So you just finished filling in your benchmark data. You are going to be hopping between your benchmark tab and your AIS groupings tab. Before we start this, I do want to remind you that you can easily change the names of these tabs on your own copy. Say you don't want to call it benchmark results, say you want to call it diagnostic results. If you don't want to call it AIS groupings, maybe you want to call it small groups. Okay, so also maybe you have maybe you don't want to keep your groupings all in one tab. Maybe you want to have two separate tabs. So please remember this little plus sign here at the bottom. Click on it and you will create another sheet. Okay, so I'm going to delete that sheet. Yes, I'm okay with deleting it. So now this is where it's really going to depend on how you collected your data and what your data looks like, how you want to change your groups. Now, for me, I use iReady Diagnostics, and iReady actually has a tab where it sorts your students into groups for you, which is awesome. I can go into math or reading, whichever diagnostic it is, and I can look at the skills and it will actually group. It will say, okay, students maxed out, students missed this skill, they only tested at a 1, grade 1, where they should be in a grade 2. So you're going to use that data and you're going to make groups. Commonly, I do 4 groups when I have typically 14 students, 15 students a school year. Maybe you only want to have 3, maybe you want to have 5. So you're going to study the data you just collected, study those scores, and look for commonalities. Look for areas that you might say, oh, okay, so all of these students, specifically talking about reading, all of these students are doing really well on comprehension. So we're going to put them all together because they have the fluency, they're in comprehension, but we want to boost them even higher. So they're going to be my higher level comprehension group, where now we're going to start practicing writing and diving deeper into questions. Okay, maybe you want to have a fluency group. Maybe there are some students that really are having difficulty isolating those letter sounds and they need more practice just decoding words. Okay, so that's an example of how I did groups. For me, I had a fluency group, a comprehension group, and then a decoding group. And then my decoding group of students were actually pulled as well. So during reading, they were seeing separate reading teachers, and I was working half of my reading time with my fluency group, and half of my reading time in comprehension. And you're going to want those fluency students to make their way into the comprehension group by the end of the year. So that's just an example of how I created my AIS groupings. Again, you can rename this, you can rename these groups. I've said before, maybe you want to, you never want to say high, medium, low. You don't want your students knowing. A lot of the time they can tell which group they're in, but you don't want your students knowing if they're in a high, medium, or low level group. So I tend to stick with city names or animal names or colors. So have fun. Take your time isolating your data, finding commonalities, and starting to build those AIS math groupings. And this is something that you're going to shift. You're going to go back. Maybe you're going to notice in 3 weeks you need to change your groups again. That's a good sign. That's what you want. Your groups really shouldn't stay the same because your goal, your end goal is to try to have all your students improve. Okay? So, happy organizing, happy data collecting, and happy AIS math group building.